Hi everybody, it's Leotte here. Okay, so this week's assignment was challenging for me to say the least. I came across some things in this chapter that I found to be so incredibly offensive as a black person. Uh, I was I was shocked. I was just flabbergasted, but I'll get to that as we get to the answers of these questions. So, I'm going to be reading a lot from the paper because I want to stay on topic as much as possible. So, here we go. All right, number one. How does SES, socioeconomic status, influence the development of literacy? Children that are from lower socioeconomic status often have deficiencies in language usage because they often lack a dialogue-rich environment, including one with an abundant and rich teacher-child dialogue. All too often, and sadly, it's the case that when you have a classroom full of nothing but lower socioeconomic children, the level of expectation, um, the bar for them is often set low. This is where they are, this is how they are, and this is all they're going to be, is often the mindset. And there's not a language-rich environment. Children don't only just learn from the teacher, they learn from each other. But if everybody's doing the same thing and they're on the same level and the same mentality, there's nothing to help them to stretch or to help them to grow or to push them, up to higher levels. Children are going to rise to your level of expectation. So if the mindset in the school, the classroom is, well, this is where they are, this is all they know, this is how it's going to be, then that's where they're going to stay. And, as Basil Bernstein stated, when it comes to children of lower socioeconomic status, yes, if you keep them solely with kids of lower socioeconomic status, they're going to stay at that level. However, if you integrate them with children of a higher socioeconomic status, from middle or higher class, with kids who have a higher, richer language usage, different dialogue, different vocabulary, you put them with those kids in an integrated classroom, those kids with a lower socioeconomic status rise to the higher level. They learn from their peers. They learn from the highest level of expectations, which is, if you have children that are of a higher socioeconomic status, that's the highest bar in there. Children will often rise to the level of expectation in the room, to the kids that are in the room. So the scores and the tests of the children in an integrated classroom of the lower socioeconomic children proved the benefit of integrating them with not just kids of the same lower socioeconomic status, but with children of higher and richer language with the middle and higher socioeconomic status. So that was huge. That's very beneficial. Question number two. How does culture influence the development of literacy? First, I'm going to give you this answer. Speech development proceeds generally the same sequence around the world. It goes from cooing to babbling, 1 word, 2 word, and 3 word stages. That's the same every country. The main differences between countries and various cultures has to do with the actual sounds that are made, the sounds that are used, and the rules for combining the sounds. They use the rules in that language and that dialect. Now, speaking of dialect, when I got to reading this part, and it talks about the differences in teaching kids with different dialect, it said, a major consideration in planning instruction for African American children is whether their primary language is a dialect of English or a derivative of African languages that use English vocabulary. They refer to this as African American English, also known as Ebonics. First and foremost, African American English, I'm black, what you would call an African American. I'm American, I speak English. The fact that the writers of this book assume that if you're black, you're either going to speak mainstream American English or Ebonics because you're black or African American is so incredibly insulting. As you read further, 2 or 3 segments later, and I'm talking about Basil Bernstein, he had enough sense to recognize that the lower socioeconomic status, those kids that are from the hood, who they assume to be, they're all black, they speak Ebonics, it has nothing to do with your color. Ebonics is from the ghetto. It doesn't matter if you're white, black, Hispanic, Chinese. If you're in the ghetto and you live in the hood, you're generally speaking Ebonics. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to do with the color of your skin. I'm black. I've never spoken Ebonics. I'm not one of the rare few who speak mainstream American English. There isn't the two. Ebonics, or what they refer to as African American English, which almost made me puke when I saw that. The slang has nothing to do with your color. Slang is a derivative of culture, of class. It is a class issue. Lower socioeconomic class. I grew up in the middle and the high socioeconomic class. All of my black friends grew up, African American friends grew up in middle to high socioeconomic class. We didn't speak Ebonics because that's not the class that we grew up in. It's got nothing to do with the color of our skin. And so many people think it's a black thing. And I can't believe that that was actually in my textbook and that they referred to Ebonics as African American English. That is so insulting. It was a challenge for me to get through this assignment, but I wanted to speak on it to make it clear I'm a black woman, African American. I'm letting you know, slang is not a black thing. It's a class thing. It's a class thing. Okay, I vented, I'm done. I've exceeded my time, but I've got another question. Okay, so I'll keep it brief. What can a child care center do to increase the development of literacy? Aside from having an environment classrooms full of books of all variances, of all subjects that are inclusive, culturally inclusive of those of all abilities. I so loved what Bernstein was saying about having the classrooms that are integrated with children of all classes, lower socioeconomic, middle, and high socioeconomic, children that are ELLs, English language learners. It's so important because they learn from each other. They raise the bar. Don't exclude them and have all the ELLs in a class by themselves. All the lower SES children in a class by themselves. Because, whether you're black, ELL, lower SES status, again, children will rise to your level of expectation. If you've already excluded them and segregated those children because of those factors, then you've already set them up to fail. So inclusivity and integration is huge. And having the materials available to them, having a language-rich environment throughout your classrooms and your centers, and dialogue, not just reading the story, but have the Q&A, stretch it out, extend those books. It's huge. Okay, I've way exceeded my time. Thank you for letting me vent. I hope you watched all 9 minutes and 30 seconds of this. And excuse me for getting emotional, but I just wanted to let you know. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.